Good morning, friends. Reverend Jim McConnell is being treated for bronchitis, and he was hoping to feel well enough to join by Zoom, but he decided to pass the torch today. So I will be stepping in for him and also reading his sermon. Good morning, friends. I want to extend a warm welcome to you today. Everyone is welcome here. You are welcome regardless of your age, your race, your income, your religion, or the gender with which you identify. You are welcome here regardless of who you love, who you vote for, the regrets that burden you, or the mistakes that you've made. In this safe community, we support each other in the sacred task of becoming. We celebrate the transcending mystery of life and rely on the transforming power of love. Here, we revere the words of the great teachers, such as Jesus, the Buddha, and Confucius. It is, however, the task of every UU to be their own Buddha, their own Jesus, their own Confucius. It is a cornerstone of our religion that each of us is the author of their own life experience. And through the practice of compassionate mind, we can heal our bodies, our minds, our spirits, and our planet. It is our work as a community to walk with each other along the spiritual pathways that lead toward happiness, compassion, and life fully lived. And while we are a safe harbor where there is solace and healing, we're also a launching pad from which we are propelled into the tumult of life to live courageously, justly, and lovingly. In this sacred place, we create the structures that lift up the downtrodden, set the captives free, and heal the brokenhearted. Here, we have learned that to be fully human is to be fully divine, and that with a little help from our friends, we can each tell our own unique story. Beth?
Joining us on Zoom today, we have Charlene, Vicki, and Joan. Welcome.
Welcome. So our service today is on gratitude, being thankful for the hard parts. Later in the service, we'll hear from individuals who'd like to step forward and share something that they are grateful for. And we'll talk more about that in just a minute. Gloria, I have you listed as the chalice lighter in the order of service. Would you like to come up and light and I'll read some words, or do you have words prepared?
The only words I have is, I'll just say, I light this chalice in the hope of, because of hope, because of peace, because of love, and because we need each other in a time like this.
Blessed be. Thank you, Gloria. Our opening hymn is in the teal hymnal, Singing the Journey, number 1010. We give thanks. Oh, dear. Oh, the candles are not fragrant, but I know Sandy has difficulties even in a room with candles, so I'm very sorry about that. Something to plan for in the future. Well, as I mentioned, I'm standing in today for Reverend Jim McConnell, and my name is Lisa Fuller. I'm a longtime devoted member of the fellowship, and so I will do my best to present his sermon as written. Several years ago, there was a report on the local news about a young woman who, on a cold, snowy winter morning, started her car to warm it up. Then she returned to the house to make her final preparations for driving to work, and a few minutes later, when she went out to get into her car, the car was on fire. The fire department came and put the fire out. The car was a total loss. As the fire truck was driving away, one of the firemen, unbelievably, noticed that the young woman's house was now on fire. A dryer vent had clogged with lint and ignited. So they immediately turned around and put out that fire. Later, when interviewed by a local news team, against the backdrop of her burned out automobile, the young woman responded, "God has been looking out for me today." I watched that news segment with my wife, Patty, and commented to her, if God was looking out for her, I'd hate to see what would happen if God had been angry. I do see the young woman's reasoning, though. Had the fire department not been already there to put out the car fire, she might have lost her whole house instead of just the laundry room. It seems that thankfulness is a powerful, innate response to life for the spiritually and emotionally healthy person. So much so that I speculate it is the innateness of thankfulness that is the seed from which religion grows. It seems likely that the catastrophe of both the car fire and the house fire on the same day evoked in the young woman a feeling of thankfulness for her life as a way of putting into perspective the preciousness and beauty of life, in spite of the inconvenience and difficulty with which she would now have to deal. For me, gratitude is like Dorothy's little dog Toto from The Wizard of Oz. Gratitude pulls back the curtain of materialism and capitalism with which we have covered the world, revealing the soulful reality of existence. In the state of gratitude, we may see that all of life is suffused with a light for which there is no darkness. In the state of gratitude, we may see that all of life is suffused with a light for which there is no darkness. One of the oddest things about gratitude is that many folks learn to be thankful for events in their lives that were initially quite difficult. A friend of Jim's is a big advocate for Alcoholics Anonymous. He gave Jim a copy of the Big Book of AA, which he's had on his nightstand for 23 years. And Jim says, I feel compelled to mention that if you poured all the alcoholic beverages that I've consumed in my 73 years into a gallon jug, you would still have plenty of room left for some milk to pour on your morning breakfast cereal. And the only recreational drugs I've consumed is a marijuana cookie that a friend gifted me with a few months ago. So one thing that Jim admires about AA spirituality is the use of addiction as a metaphor for enslavement to alcohol. It seems that addiction is also a very helpful idea for describing our species' capacity to habituate ourselves in very negative and destructive ways to political and religious culture and to the life-defeating defensive structures of our own minds. One can be an addict without ever drinking an alcoholic beverage or taking drugs. In my opinion, most of us are addicts of one kind or another. Jim says, a striking thing about my friend is his profound thankfulness for his addiction. He has related to me on several occasions how alcohol took him and his family down a road of deep suffering. He describes how working his program and the brother and sisterhood of his AA group transformed his suffering into a doorway of freedom and a better life for himself, his kids, and his spouse. How he went from thinking of his family as an impediment to cherishing them and learning through them that life is sacred. One interesting aspect of my friend's reclamation of what he calls second sight. Working the AA program led him to, in his words, see the world, others, and himself as holy. 40-some years ago, after finishing seminary, serving a congregation for a couple of years, and writing the required papers for ordination in the United Methodist Church, the day had finally come when I went before a committee of 3 senior elders of the church for final approval for ordination. They were, all 3, experienced and respected ministers of the conference. I knew things were not going to go well when the head of the triad said, "Jim, we just didn't understand the theology portion of your paper. We sent it to a seminary professor, and he didn't understand it either. So please tell us what your theology is." So I did, and after some rather intense discussion, the head of the triad, in exasperation, asked, "Do you believe that Jesus needed to be a real person?" And I knew this was it. If I answered yes, I would be ordained. But if I answered no, I could be fired and removed from the parish, effective immediately. I elected to tell my truth. "No," I said, "Jesus did not need to be a real person. It is the story of Jesus that is important. The story provides important benchmarks for spiritual wholeness." The leader responded, "You need to go back to seminary and learn the importance of the personhood of Jesus." I said, actually, it was in seminary where I came to these views. I could be in seminary for 100 years, and it is unlikely that my views would change. Fortunately, they seemed to like Jim, and Jim liked them, so they did not totally reject him. They placed Jim on a kind of probation and asked a retired district superintendent to be his mentor and meet with him every couple of weeks for the next year and attempt to straighten out his thinking. So they met as required, and those meetings, he says, were quite convivial, though his mentor did, from time to time, become frustrated with his perspectives. Over the year, the mentor gradually became sympathetic to some of my point of view. And one thing that he really liked was considering the Christian story as a one thing he really liked was considering the Christian story as mythological. That opened up the possibility of being able to learn from others of the world's great religions, which more than likely were based on a myth also. In this way, the great religions belong to all of humanity, and everyone could profit spiritually from them. I guess I was a Unitarian Universalist then, and I didn't know it. The year passed, and Jim's mentor reported back to the triad that what he thought of my theology, and that he thought it was valid, even if unconventional, and that I should be ordained. I suffered a lot over that year. I can't tell you how many times I berated myself for not just saying what the triad wanted to hear, rather than my true thoughts. Now, though, I am truly thankful for the whole stressful mess of that experience. Had I not been honest, as I was very tempted to not be, I may never have found Unitarian Universalism, which has become one of the great joys of my life. And for this, I am truly thankful.
May we all be grateful for the things that we have. We're fortunate than a lot of other people. The sun is shining today, the air is bright, and there are people who are suffering and sad right now. So let us all be grateful for being together and enjoying one another on a day like this.
Blessed be. And now, if you'll join me in a circle, we'll hold hands and sing our benediction.